Hi, welcome back to Speak Up Afrika, where we continue to bring you conversations that inform, engage, and empower. And this episode is not any different. I'm sure it's a conversation that will have you talking because we want to dive into what is the future of the young people in East Africa and in our country, to be specific. This is a region where young people make up a majority of the population, but oftentimes are sidelined when it comes to matters political and policy making. And to help me have this conversation, debunk what is true, what is not, what are the realities, is a guest who is most likely to have a legal term, a governance jargon, and a philosophy terminology in one sentence. The youth in suits, Mr. Kasmuel McOure. I hope I got that right.
You did, and you flattered me high.
Sana.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
I've been looking forward to this.
It's a hassle. It's been a hassle to get you.
I've been looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it in all honesty.
We are glad to be here with you. How are you?
As
How
am
are you
I.
doing?
Like I was telling you offset, I have not considered all things, but to the ones that I have considered, I am doing fairly okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We still pass condolences for the passing of Raila Odinga.
Right.
He had become a buddy to you.
Oh yeah.
How is that? How does that feel for
I think
you?
it's a real, because in the kind of political strain that we experience as a country, for the young people, there's hardly ever the opportune moment for entry, and especially into a political sphere that is as vibrant as the Orange Democratic Movement. That's just one. But then to have the person who's a vision bearer, the person who set the institution up and gave his life for embrace you and become more than a leader. Because for me, he was more than a leader. He was actually a friend. And there are several personal anecdotes that I could share that the loss for me is multi-layered. I know that we have him as a founding father of the Orange Democratic Movement, as a father of democracy, and fighter, leader of the Second Liberation. And then now we trickle down to the role that he's played in stabilizing the country. And then he had become more of a grandfather, father figure type of thing. And he was my childhood superhero. So it was all those things in one. And I only got to know him for a year and a week, and has been the most life-changing decision for my life. So it's still a very murky period. It's confusing, to say the least. But as you know, nothing about grief is linear. So some days are bearable, other days are confusing. Every once in a while, I find myself texting his 9 or calling one of his numbers. It just feels like a huge prank. Maybe he's out in some country somewhere and he wants to make a grand comeback.
That's true.
So that we say baba while you are away. But it is what it is.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I mean, for even our listeners who are tuning in, some of us are still just getting in terms with what happened. And I want us to start our conversations with Kasmuel. You have and you continue to be a young leader who has come out very vocal, very bold, Has this always been you? Is it something innate, or was it trained and you came up and gathered the courage to get into the political scene and leadership?
I think so. I have always been vocal in some way, shape, or form. And this has permeated through my childhood into my adult life. Even from primary school, I grew up from a fairly humble background. And so for you to find your space in the world when the odds are sort of stuck against you, because if I'm to combine just in a nutshell, maybe the basic education experience is when you grow up poor and sort of not conventionally attractive as a teenager, then you have to do a lot of things to overcompensate. So then I got into music, I got into all the possible sports that I could get into. And because I did not grow up with television, I had to read a lot to make up for the disparity in jargon and just listening.
Which you're very good at.
Which, that's the thing. So I had to sit down with the Student's Companion and I would read. I remember I read the Arabian Nights both in English and Swahili, and actually enjoyed the Swahili version more. So you have to sort of overcompensate for that. And then now you have to work on your social skills because, you do not have the luxury of just being good looking. Good looking people sort of have it, sort of have it kind of easy. You can't say, yeah, and you're one of those people. Yeah. But it's one of those things. But despite that, what I wanted to do is wherever, as much as I could, to improve the human experience of the people that I was around, because I knew what it was like to be bullied and stand up against bullies. I knew what it was like to have your name maligned and just have people just raise accusations. So I consistently have been sort of anti, just not establishment really, but just the normal accepted roles. There are certain things which people would accept, like certain people were to be bullied, and those kinds of things. And even proceeding now into university, I got into student leadership, which was the first place where I got real character development, in the sense that when I was in second year at the Technical University of Kenya, I was dating this girl, and I used to spend most of my time in Juja. Everyone used to think I was in JKUAT. So I thought I could run a campaign remotely. And so I got really nice posters and got them out. And I did well online, but then needless to say, I lost that election terribly. And I was also very naive. So I was told, you need to pay someone for them to drop out of the race for you. And it's the first time now I get this political experience. It was like a foreshadowing, because I'm lucky that the next year I won the election.
Kasmuel, a great point of conversation starts for us that you mentioned Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
And I want to take you back to the Gen Z protests.
Yes.
And I paraphrase what he said, like, the young people we have, if not well taken care of,
yes,
are a ticking time bomb, and you came up bold, ready to challenge the status quo. And we were all going for change. We wanted something different. And I bring you to 2025, where IBC has rolled out for voter registration, and the numbers are disheartening. Kasmuel, what's happening?
In all fairness, it was bound to happen. The youth bulge has always been, because, especially this section of the Horn of Africa, we're fairly young in terms of the median age of the country. Kenya is maybe 18 years old on average. Rwanda is probably younger, maybe 17 or 18 about. Uganda as well. So the countries that are neighboring us are fairly young countries. We're between 18 and 21 in terms of the median age of the population. So anybody who has half a brain would just see that this would be a problem, because we have more people who are attaining an employable age without proper structures or systems or industries to be absorbed into. And therefore, that definitely would bring a bit of a strain. And bold of President Uhuru to say that, because a lot of these tragedies that we see in our country would have been avoided had they been more prudent in his presidency with the resources that were bequeathed onto to the people. Because when they take over power in 2013, if you look at the debt burden was not anywhere close to what is inherited in subsequent governments. But then 2024 happened, and I think it was just a point of enlightenment. And this has been happening if you've observed countries in the world. If you saw what happened in Pakistan, if you saw what happened in India, if you saw what happened in Nigeria with NSAS, if you saw what happened in Nepal, and currently even what's happening in Tanzania, I think there is a great awakening of young people to their controllable social rights. Mm-hmm. And we are uncomfortable with the status quo, and people are saying that if this does not work for us, we will agitate until it works. And now to even go further into the question, where now we just juxtapose the 2024 experience into what's happening in 2025, I think it might not be entirely prudent to think about it just as new votes, because I'm a Gen Z myself, as I believe you are. I was eligible to vote in 2022. So I've heard certain quarters complaining that the voter register that was used in the just concluded by-elections were from 2022, but some of us were eligible. And if you can remember, in 2022, the youthful population that abstained from the vote was about 8 million.
8 million.
It means that if they voted for one person, they would have made a president. And while our country is still bedeviled by the ills of tribalism and ethnic jingoism and all those kind of persuasions that our political climate is organized around, we, as the young people, could decide to change that. But we still have not gotten to the point of social awakening, and maybe just because of our material conditions as well. But we've not gotten to the point where we can decide to say that you know what, we will discard our tribal bias, we'll discard any tribal burdens that we have and just vouch for a better Kenya. It is hard. Nobody has presented that version and shown us that this is what a better Kenya looks like. And of course, there are certain forces. Now, in the registration, I was even asking myself, and it's a question that I have posed. It cannot be that we turned out on the streets in the millions, and up until recently, in Nairobi alone, it was about 4,500 new votes. And currently, as things stand today, maybe in December, we only maybe have 90-something thousand, a paltry 90,000 new voters registered in the whole country. It's not even just in Nairobi. So we will need to get our hands dirty. We will need to go out and first secure the vote. Sometimes I don't know what people think securing the vote means. It does not mean that we go and cast it and then go and stand outside the polling station. We need to ensure that this message is broken down to its simplest form, where everybody in the Vijiji will go out. But there's a weakness which we might suffer in the political organization of our country, where, and some of our critics are they're being vindicated over time, because politics, indeed, as David Ndii says, is a contact sport. Last year we had beaten that because we were actually in contact, and we were translating the bill, and we were interpreting the constitution and whatnot. And it can be a daunting thing. It can be a very daunting task to go around the country speaking politics, especially when you do not know where your next meal is going to come from, if you are not sure of a job, or maybe it might be bad for your brand. You might become politically exposed. So there are several factors, but it is important, regardless of these factors, if we do not actively participate in getting the vote, because that vote is going to be the next most important tool we have after our voices, because that allows us to have a ballot revolution.
Okay.
So that's what I see. I do not think particularly that anyone was being dissuaded, because there's continuous voter registration. We just need to incentivize ourselves more. We need to love Kenya to the point where we are willing to take a bit of inconvenience for the country, because change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Change is inconvenient, and change sometimes could be unpopular. It just, is Kenya special enough for you to risk taking a vote to bring in the rightful candidate that you think would steer the country in the right direction?
Yeah.
Yes.
You shed so much light into that, and I would like for us to take a couple of seconds there and try and really bring it to our young people, actually, because I have this podcast to primarily inform, engage, and empower. So many things could be said on the ground as to why people are not taking their voters' cards and the challenges which are there. But I want to digress a bit and ask, during the Gen Z movement, you are so at the forefront. You know, we loved, we rallied around you. And somebody would argue and say, a year down the line and a couple of months, we are seeing a shift in that. You could be quoted to be part of the broad-based government, primarily by being in ODM. And the broader picture didn't really change for us. You know, we didn't get the changes that we were going to the streets for. What changed for you? Was there anything that shifted in your mind, a pivotal point that said, okay, now we can switch and do things differently?
I think you were not wrong in that analysis, as uncomfortable as it might be for people to hear. But there was a turning point for me, because I realized that, I remember we were doing a citizens' assembly in, must have been Mathare. And I was just walking around the streets and in the locality. And I asked, who is the member of county assembly from this region? And they told me the name of the person. And I asked them, are they part of the Social Justice Center? And they told me no. Are they more based politically in terms of political ideology? And people said no. And I asked, how long have you guys been doing this political organization here? And they said, over 10 years. And I remember asking, why is it that all we want to do is just buy people T-shirts and buy water and chant slogans and go back home? Why can't we actually take political power that will allow us to truly defend these people over here? Because of all the gains, because even if people decide to occupy and reclaim riparian land as an act of resistance, which is actually good. It shows the indefatigability of the human spirit, and which I think is good. but the law consistently could go and turn against you. There's someone who would say that this is illegal, and tractors would do away with 10 years of work that you've been doing. And I told them that we have to organize to take political power, and the only way we do that is by meeting the people and telling them that we have the better plan, we have the better ideologies and all those kinds of things. And it also really broke my heart because as a person who was one of the figureheads of the movement, it did not sit pretty with me that we would take the children of the working poor to the streets to die without giving them a clear goal. The difference between our revolution and protests from previous years, you could not necessarily point which direction, who was the person who was coordinating. So who takes accountability for the people whose lives are lost? Yes, we might say that the lives were lost due to the recklessness of the police, which is actually true. The rogue police who are out there shooting innocent civilians who are exercising their right to assemble and demonstrate as enshrined in Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya, those are to be held accountable. But again, for a movement like ours, there are certain gains. We did not take time to reflect and to consolidate our gains. And this is because we were not particularly reading from the same script. On the one hand, there are people who were giving themselves to the greater good of this country. And I remember there's a time I told my friends when we were going that if we feel like this is losing momentum, I'll just go out there and sacrifice myself. And they said, no, we are not here to become political martyrs. And I was like, then why are we going on the streets? Because there are people who are consistently dying. Why is it? True. What makes us special? What makes us more special than these people? So then because we could not sit back and consolidate the gains, the finance bill was kicked out. We should have consolidated that and seen. So how can we now push? Because remember, there's a time we even were called to the table and said to meet our demands. It would not have needed the setting up of a commission for people to get compensation for the victims of police brutality. It would not have taken us a year, because a year down the line, we still are grappling with the implementation of the 10-point agenda that now makes my party and myself, by extension, part of the broad-based government. There just needs to be, we would have been a bit more organized. And that's the thing which political parties do. And a year down the line, because I've been telling people that we need to organize ourselves politically and join political parties and lend our voices to the national conversation. Last year at such a time, the conversation had started shifting back to the legacy politicians. Remember, there's a time that the primetime news were only always about the youth. But then after the impeachment of the deputy president, you realize that people went back to the regular news items. That nowadays, you cannot find news to do with the youth during prime time. So it just shows that where we are collectively, even the model of the media, apart from these special and sacred spaces that people like you create for furthering of the conversations, to empower, to inspire, and to inform people.
All right. Yeah. Kasmuel, interesting how there's the mention of most of the people you are with in your circles have joined political parties. At the time in 2024, we were leaderless, we were partyless, we were tribeless. And that's what we wanted. We wanted change for everyone. So now when key figures join political parties, where then do we draw the line? Because there's a feeling or an opinion that once you join the political parties, you now get consumed into old ways of governance. And that's exactly what we were fighting. So as an individual, as Kasmuel, so where do we bring the change when we actually join the systems that we were trying to fight?
The only way we can bring sustainable change, because we cannot individual or personal action our way out of systemic challenges, is by ensuring we are at the table where laws are made. We who claim to be people, men and women of integrity, who will honor Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, which speaks about the kind of public leader that we deserve and integrity, we will need to be a part of the National Assembly, where we can oversight the executive, we can legislate and formulate laws that are pro-Kenya, pro-people, and are progressive. And apart from oversight and legislation, we also do the representation of the masses. Until we can get to that point where people can get into parliament independently, it becomes rather hard. And the only tools available to us is just invoking Article 37 of the Constitution, which is the right to assemble, picket, and to demonstrate, But that is not a sustainable tool as having young, erudite, eloquent, intellectually capable leaders in the legislative houses to push these bills to ensure that they become law. I think it's way overdue that we need to have certain reforms in the police service. This can only be done by legislators because the legislative house is the place where laws are made, formulated in our country. We tried to form our own political parties. We tried to tell the young people to join political parties, but certain players came and took advantage of the scene. So until we can get to the point where we will decide that as young people, our tribe will be Kenya, will be tribe Katiba, our tribe will be the constitution, and that will be our Bible and our magnum opus, which will guide all the decisions that we make going forward. That 8 million could very easily scoop all the seats in parliament, get us a presidency, and say that this is the direction we want the country to go to. But until then, should we just sit back and cry foul? I think not. I think that maybe we are to play the role of paving the way, just as John the Baptist did for Jesus Christ. Maybe we are to set this stage for the revolution that is to come through our younger siblings or our children. But until then, we cannot, by Jove, sit back and say that because all these things are rotten, we will not participate. I think it is a fool's errand for us to pursue and tell ourselves that we will bury our heads in the sand until the system changes so that we can be a part. We'll realize that a lot of harm will come our way in ways that we cannot rectify. So that's why I chose to get into these legacy political party. And again, when choosing a political party, I could have joined any political party, but I chose to join the Orange Democratic Movement because it fought for the constitution. It afforded us a new constitution under which we can challenge electoral results. We can exercise. We remember our sovereignty. We can exercise Article 37, which allows us to demonstrate. And if you think about it, through our quest for power to administer state, we have stretched the electoral laws in the country more than any other party. And it is through our laws that the country has received the enormous blessing. Unlike our neighbors, for example, you know that the Tanzanian constitution, for example, in the constitutional dispensation they are under, you cannot challenge a presidential electoral result.
Yeah.
Here in Kenya, we can. Here in Kenya, we could go to court, and actually, my party has led to the overturning of that. So I was thinking about those gains. Part of the messaging, the language that we were using in 2024 had been used previously in 2023 in the high cost of living demonstrations. So I aligned myself with a party that's center-left, that aligns to a welfareist society for all the people. So that's the decision I made, that regardless of the system in which we operate, because it is not an ideal state, we are still working on ensuring that the state can benefit all and that we can come to the full realization of the promises that are enshrined in our national anthem and our constitution. Until then, I chose to align myself with the party that would advance the most good, the most common good and well-being of our people in this country.
Okay. Kasmuel, I think the last 1.6 years have been quite a roller coaster for you, because as you speak, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around during the maandamanos and whatnot. And early in the conversation, you had previously shown up to be very vocal, but I guess it's June last year that really pushed you now to the limelight, and now getting all this cancellation and now getting under the wing of your mentor. Do you think you are ready for all that came? Were you ready? Were you ripe enough for all that unfolded?
I don't think so. Yeah, the people I would not particularly associate with at the time that I was coming up, I would be more strategic. Again, these are things, life must be lived forward, but can only be understood backwards. And these are lessons which I can only offer in terms of perspective in retrospect, because there are certain strategic decisions that needed to be made. There are decisions that required courage. Like, for example, when the president said that the youth should have come forward to speak, at the time I had access. I had the ability to have gone to say exactly what it is that we wanted, but I was afraid because I was afraid people would cancel me. But then the thing I came to realize is that I would be cancelled either way. And I would have done more good if I listened to my gut and if I listened to those who are close to me. But then I also would have surrounded myself with people who understood the political terrain of the country, because the things have panned out exactly, for example, the way His Excellency Raila Odinga told me they would pan out. So I would have met him earlier, because there had been attempts from his team to reach out, but I kept on. At the time, I was very militant. I should have met him in July. If I met him in July, I think we would have had made significant strides. So there's a lot, but the long and short of it is I'm still very clear in my mind about the course that it is I want to pursue for the country. My spirit remains indefatigable in that sense. So regardless of what people say, I don't think it will affect my mission as much. I've also learned that you require such a thick skin, and nobody prepares you. People just say that as a cliche, but nobody prepares you for how much it is, for how difficult it actually is for you to be a young leader, especially if this is the first time you're being plunged. Because there are certain factors that would I could say constraining to a young person entering politics, in the sense that if you're young, you might have the time and the energy, but you do not have the money. And as you might know, the politics world over is driven. It's very, very heavily money driven. And I got the fame before I got the money. Typically, people usually work and get in their productive years and amass resources, and then they plunge themselves into the politics. So for me, the pyramid is upside down. So it's very difficult to navigate security. It's very difficult to navigate even your social situations. But I have learned my lessons, and I continue now to push for change and to agitate for it in a more sober-minded way, in more sustainable measures. I have not learned everything, but at least the basics I have seen. And I'm hopeful for our country. I think there is a lot that the young people can do to offer it, as long as we get the clarity. Because now, as you can see, things are simmering down. Yeah. People are starting to see why I did certain things, and they're starting to do those things themselves. Because I was the first one, I got most of the backlash. I see people nowadays, they join whatever political parties they can at no consequence whatsoever. But as long as we can defeat tribalism and bring down the cost of the vote, I'm very hopeful in what the young people of our country are going to deliver in terms of change.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the time that now you meet Raila, what are the conversations looking like? Was it deliberate move for you to be silenced, at the time? Because it was more of like a bulb switch, that yesterday you were with us and then now we're seeing all this. What were the conversations now between you guys, if you may, where you're now being told, now come, let's teach you how to do things, or what was actually being given to you for you to transition?
You guys have not been around Baba. You don't actually... I can't describe it, but it's not like this. When people delude themselves into thinking that you could give Baba a piece of your mind. First of all, Baba has the room. When you get into a room where he's in, he disarms you. I can tell you, I went there with questions and eloquence and articles of the constitutions and violations. And then you just hear, young man, everything. I lost everything. Then he has stopped his day. And remember, at the time, he was campaigning to become AUC chair. Yeah. So he has stopped his day to listen to you, a stranger. I couldn't believe it myself. So I also, and this is a thing which I think I understood fairly early, because I was brought up in a rather strict family. So the aspect of respect is not a foreign concept to me. Mm-hmm. I was not looking to make an enemy out of Baba. I was not looking to criticize him. God knows he has borne all the criticism this country has to offer. Mm-hmm. And he actually is the only leader who has never sued the media, which is a thing which we do not appreciate, because there's a lot of propaganda, a lot of false spin that has been done for him. So for me, when I met him, it was a point of relief. It was not that I was being taken out of a movement and being told whatever, because if you look at it chronologically, I'd been telling the people, no, you have to own me first. Because at the time, we'd been on the streets and they were saying, oh, we're partyless. And I remember there's some young people who tried to create a political party, and they were dragged the entire time.
I remember.
They were made into caricatures. And then us, we've gone on the streets, and after we've gone to the streets, mm-hmm. Suddenly the public says, they think that, oh, now We can form a political party of our own. A person comes and starts fundraising and they start channeling the money there. And I was saying, now, we are the ones who are here. Own us as well. It's not wrong for you to own a particular person, a political party, but own us as well. So by the time when I had asked the crowd to do that, I said, for the people who believe in me, this is the direction that I'm taking. I will go into the Orange Democratic Movement and we will go together and we will figure it out from there. And I have to insist that this is the best decision I have ever made. In the sense that I've learned so much, I've gotten the exposure. There are several answers to questions which I didn't even know I had that I have been supplied. And I have gotten to, I got to spend a year and a week with a beacon of democracy all world over. You know, people now revering him in his death. But I got to experience him for a year and a week all to myself because people preferred to throw names. I remember there's even a time we were brandished betrayals of Gen Z in a national daily. We were put on the front page as myself and my superhero by a media house, which was very critical of the president. And at the time, they would just speak all sorts of nasty things, and they were being told, oh, they are the ones who are injecting. And the owner of the media house was in a senatorial race. And about 2 weeks to the by-election, he went to State House and he stepped down from his senatorial race. That media house wrote nothing about that. Suddenly, they were not betrayers of the cause.
Yeah.
And so I just realized that there are several factors that are happening and a lot of people are just putting their personal interests first. But joining the Orange Democratic Movement was it was an eye-opener. So for me, it was not a light bulb switch moment. I always knew that I wanted to be part of the political formation and I wanted to join a party that aligned the most with my values. Because remember, I was leading the national coordinating committee of people's assemblies all over the country. And it had 64 organizations with about 6 political parties inside. I had political parties to choose from, but then the parties that were therein did not fit my criteria. So that's why I joined the Orange Democratic Movement. I think it's pragmatic, it's beneficial both to myself and to the national project. And I would advise every young person to sit down, ask themselves what their values are beyond that phone, beyond what that influencer whose screenshots you get, beyond the sensational headline. What do you truly want for the country? And you will find that once you crystallize this, it will be rather obvious what political party you should join, depending on what your values are. It will be a no-brainer, because I know people who are in the legacy far-right parties, and I know people who are in these leftist parties. I decided to join a leftist party myself. So, yeah.
Okay. We continue honestly mourning the demise of Baba. I think it's still fresh, it's still hard. And may he rest in peace. You and Sifuna,
right,
publicly, you do not agree with Secretary General at all.
Yeah.
But in outside corners and streets, you know, you have a chat here and there. What's the real relationship and situation between you and Sifuna?
I don't think the situation between my party secretary general and I is a personal one. Is a man I revere and respect as a legal mind in this country, and I think he will be one of the most consequential legislators we've had in a while. But the Orange Democratic Movement is at a point of deep transition, as is the country, and I just abhor how duplicitous his recent actions have been. My most recent squabble with him has been, he has publicly gone out and enchanted slogans that are furthering the agenda of parties and coalitions that are diametrically opposed to the mission of the Orange Democratic Movement and the broad-based government by extension, because we are in this arrangement of governance. And at some point in the by-elections, you saw that candidates and the people who were campaigning for DCP, which is a party whose party leader has consistently berated and belittled our people and has called us all sorts of names, including him. The words that our party, because, you know, the party secretary general is the spokesperson of the party. If your words can be weaponized verbatim, word for word, the things you've said can be lifted and be used by our enemies and our detractors to serve their mission. The words are not twisted or contorted in any way, shape, or form. Then you're working against the party. You have to, especially at such a transitional moment. You know, when His Excellency Raila Odinga, the chief of the Golden Heart, was still alive, some of this nonsense would have floated. But then that is one. Two, how can you as a whole Secretary General miss a function, especially on the last leg of campaign for a parliamentary seat that we seek? And you go and mastermind and organize and speak and MC at a function which is diametrically opposed to the things that we are saying. On the one hand, he says that people should not say that Baba told them, and then on the other hand, when people say that Baba told us to remain in this broad-based arrangement, he criticizes it very vehemently. But when he and his compatriots from the Legislative House, who are trying to build personal brands because they've realized that they have no hold of their own, sit and say that Baba told us that we will leave this government in March 2026. That is putting words in he doesn't say musieke maneno kwa mdomo ya marehemu. So when it is his friends, it is okay. And this is our spokesperson. You know, Sifuna is not an ordinary member for the Orange Democratic Movement.
Yeah.
And he was handpicked by Baba, as were all of us. So I speak about it because the circumstances under which we joined the Orange Democratic Movement are not different. I joined the Orange Democratic Movement in the exact same fashion he joined. So he's just father. His process happened earlier, but for me and him, the process has always been the same. 3, he stands and he says there's no such thing as broad-based candidates. We know that it is an open secret that the broad-based arrangement campaigned and went to campaigns together. You saw the deputy president campaigning in Kasipul. You saw them going for projects in Ugunja. We saw the PS for Interior campaigning in Kasipul, campaigning in Magarini. They went and walked with us. We know very well it is an open secret that even the president himself gave his contribution to our campaigns. And then you say there's no such thing as broad-based candidates. That is okay if you want to have a personal opinion. But then how do you go as a spokesperson of our party, which is the Orange Democratic Movement, and congratulate candidates from Kasipul, you congratulate candidates from Magarini by way of Kombe, you congratulate candidates from Kasipul, from Ugunja, and then you say that you also congratulate a candidate from Nanak Ward. We did not win Nanam Ward in Turkana. We did not win that seat. That seat was won by the United Democratic Alliance. So then when I face him head on and say that you're being duplicitous, on the one hand, you're saying that there are no such things as broad-based candidates. On the other hand, you are claiming a victory that is not ours. It is UDA's victory. And in his hubris, he does not even take it down. He is so nonchalant about it. It's either that or he does not care about the party at all, that position is still left out in the public. So I ask him, should the public then assume this is our official party position? You see, then on our founders' dinner, he takes the time, instead of yielding the time to members who are actual founder members of the party, he takes a significant chunk of the time to read a speech by Uhuru Kenyatta, who has never been an ODM member.
Do you think those are deliberate moves?
Those are deliberate moves. You know, politicians don't make mistakes. And politicians don't misspeak. If a politician says something, they mean it. And they're sending particular messages to someone. That's why I've been saying, if he does not act right, the Orange Democratic Movement is not devoid of leaders who can execute that mandate. You know, we might lack funding and all those kinds of things, but eloquence has never been, the Orange Democratic Movement has never been at a disadvantage when it comes to eloquence and mental acuity. We afford the National Assembly the brightest, finest minds of this country. That by way of the Orange Democratic Movement. All these things that he keeps on doing, he sits down and with his little cabal of legislators who are trying to look for re-election or try to score cheap popularity points, and they don't even deliver an MCA seat in Kariobangi. You're saying you're the senator of Kenya for Nairobi, and your little cabal which says that they want to take over Nairobi, and you cannot get the party an MCA seat. And all they want to do is come and claim microphones and podiums after we have done the heavy lifting. It is we, the young people. We're the ones who are supposed to tell you this is how we want to be represented. On the other hand, you keep on saying that, mimi nimeamua term ni moja. On the other hand, you're sabotaging the broad-based. You know, the committee that has been tasked to implement the 10-point agenda is led by his deputy. Agnes Zani is the Deputy Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement. So by you, how selfish can you be that you think it's only your agenda that matters in the party? Why can't you? If you cannot support your deputy, how are we that you will look out for the best interests of the people? The people who are in that committee are ODM and party stalwarts who have worked so hard for the party. And this MOU is not a devilish thing. It just says we want to implement the National Dialogue Committee report. We want to ensure that there's meaningful inclusion of youth in public life. We want to ensure the cost of living has been looked into. We want to ensure that leadership and integrity, chapter 6, is preserved in the Constitution. We want to ensure that we can audit public debt. We want to ensure that there's reforms and preservation of Article 37 of the Constitution. We want to ensure there's good governance or prudent use and judicious use of public resources. These are things which we've been saying. And then as a Secretary General, you tell us, oh, Mimi, kama Sifuna, I mean, his word does not carry. He's merely a spokesperson, the vision bearer and the person who leads the ideology of the party. It trickles down from the party leader who has a vision. So why are we hearing more of your personal opinions than we are hearing the party's opinion and party positions? You cannot be diametrically opposed, and you're supposed to be a spokesperson. Communicate the ideals of the party. If you feel that work is too hectic, is too irresponsible, there are several young people who can do it, who are willing to toe the line. At the time when Baba is not here, we cannot afford such flippancy. We cannot afford such duplicity from certain players because they want to score cheap points. He gets a chance to audit Nairobi. As a senator of Nairobi, he claims that he wants to represent the country and county and do all that. But when he gets a chance, he sits down with this dramatic party hopper, senator of Kisii. Is it Kisii or Nyamira? Kisii, Onyonka. And they stage a walkout. It's a pity. It's such a pity that that's what our Secretary General has reduced himself to. So this is why people think it's a personal problem. No, for me, I'm looking out for the interest of the young people in the Orange Democratic Movement. If that is the behavior that our spokesperson will have, he wants to jeopardize the future. He already has an elective seat. He already is drawing a salary. What about the masses that follow him in the Orange Democratic Movement? What is supposed to happen to us if he cannot safeguard this little, if he does not protect the party position? How can he protect us? He's just playing cheap politics. And now the people they are being sympathetic to, because we know it is an open secret, he's being very cozy with people from Wiper, he's being very cozy with people from DCP and Jubilee. DCP, the party leader the other days, already spoke in very derogatory terms, but also said that they have agreed. The governor will come from DCP, senator will come from DCP, all the way to MCA will come from DCP. So as a party spokesperson, these are the people you tell us to empathize with. It either means that because you intend to defend your seat, you will not defend it on an ODM ticket. You want to defend it on a DCP ticket because those are people you're being sympathetic with. So those are the contradictions that I am facing. And it is not personal. It's just that he has to do his job.
Two things. As you're rattling this, Nick. Number one, how safe then is your place in the party? Number two, what is the standing with the people in the party? Because if Sifuna, our Secretary General, is heading into one direction and there are people who are really saying, then you're not representing the party. Will you stand the test of times as a party?
Yes.
Number one, are you safe in the party? Number two, will the party stand the test of times?
I think my place in the party is secured because one, it's a voluntary space. It's a place where I am by will and by choice. So nobody can interfere with my place in the party. As long as I'm still serving my purpose, I will do it, as uncomfortable as it might be. So that is not, it's neither here nor there. I'm very clear about that. But then about the party standing the test of time, we have weathered the storm for 20 years. For the past 19, power has eluded us, and we have never gotten into an arrangement where the government has taken us seriously. And props to President Ruto's government. This is the first government which has taken the Orange Democratic Movement seriously in a truthful sense, where there's even some sort of wiggle room and autonomy. And that's why I keep on telling people that the broad-based arrangement must work. As uncomfortable, as unpopular as it might be, it comes to a point where we have to put the popularity contest aside and do the right things. I think the Orange Democratic Movement will be a party for the future. We will weather this. Is just that our leaders just need to shape up or ship out. But I'm very, very optimistic that we will continue to shock the country positively as we have done. If you think about the quality of legislators we've taken to parliament, the party has always been very deliberate about taking the sharpest minds. And this is acknowledged even by our sharpest critics, that we afford the country the highest caliber and quality of legislators. So this is a little storm. I know that we will sort this out internally as a party, but If our leaders go wrong publicly, we will correct them publicly. And if they continue with their hubris, we will deal with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Baba took you in, and we also, something we can call a soft spot for you. And there was a close relationship that was developed. There's been a history, it could be right, it could be wrong, that if he likes you, he can handpick you. Was there any conversation of nominations? And that would lead me to my second question that I would ask you, 2027, where, if at all, are you running? Which seat, where are you positioning yourself for?
I think my relationship with Baba was a friendship. So because there's something I realized really early on, a lot of people use him for something that he can do for them. And I remember saying that I will not be one of those people. So I'll not be one of those people who consistently calls Baba to ask him, oh, Baba, I need this deal, I need this money, I need this. He would just call me and ask me, so what are you up to? I tell him, Baba, I got an invite to go to this particular place. I'm not certain how to go about it. What would you advise? Then he would say, okay, now I will call my contacts here and whatnot. And then he would give me and say, here's some facilitation, or I'll organize for your transportation and whatnot. And I remember I said that I would give my life to defending his legacy. If you realize that my politics, while he was still with us, I had focused specifically on ensuring that the country has a correct position of what Raila Odinga is and is about. And I had forsaken all others, a lot of these noise. I just wanted to ensure that people truly understood what he stood for, because there was a lot of selfishness that I had witnessed around even the legislators who were just pushing their own selfish agenda. So this fondness, it's a relationship that it would take me a long time to describe. It's been a big blow, to me. But again, I had not gotten to the point where I was speaking with him to tell him that this is what I want. I would be lying if I say that I did, if I told him that this is what I'm buying for. He had told me that, yeah, I think we had spoken just on the surface about elective politics. I was asking, because the time I was asking him, I want you to teach me politics. I want you to show me how it works. And then he would fly me around and tell me, okay, now come to this particular function. See if you're ready for this. And in some of our conversations, he said, just stop, don't be afraid. Go for it. You have what it takes. But I had not gotten to the point where I told him, Baba, this, and that. And on to your second question about 2027, I think the party will decide if I'm ripe for leadership. Of course, we all have our ambitions, and I would want to be in the legislative house. But if the party sees that I would be better placed in a nominative position, so be it. If I would be better placed in the Senate or even governor, maybe they'll front me as president or member of county assembly. So that's why I keep on saying that, depending on how the party will organize itself. Right now, what I'm interested in, my key and core priority is ensuring that the youth have a voice, and it's a clear voice, and we have clear leadership that is dignified at the very top.
So we are definitely looking out for where you're placed and how that goes.
Yes.
And we've had a quite extensive conversation. And I think for me, as we wind up this conversation, the biggest elephant in the room, and the question is, are the young people even ready for real policy making and governance? Or is it just a momentous event that led to a movement that was watered down? And if the young people do not take matters into their hands now and probably show up in 2027, what is at stake for the young generation?
I think the young people are ready. And if you think about it, even a lot of this policy work, a lot of these bills that are drafted, yes, they're fronted by members of parliament. But if you go into the offices, the people who do the writing, the people who do the drafting and the proofreading are young people. So we definitely are not too young to lead. We are ready, and we will be there, especially even in 2027. I expect to see a lot of young people showing up and delivering several key changes. But it takes willful investment of our time and our energies to expend ourselves to ensure that we're doing this for the good of the country. I would not particularly look at last year and think that the young people failed. I think we succeeded, and it was just a precursor of what we can do when we come together. But now it's time for us to invest in the Kenyan project continually, to be eternally vigilant, Because, like I said previously, sometime last year, that if power falls, only the most organized will be able to pick it. And as I always say, an organized minority will beat a disorganized majority any day. So we have to ensure that we become the organized majority. And that's the only way we will have different conversations in this country. Two, we also have to kill this animal called tribalism. It greatly bedevils our country because then we get this delusion and it clouds our minds and our judgments. And we also have to bring the cost of the vote down, ensure that campaigns can be reasonable and within reach, so that we do not have politicians thinking that because they spent, for you to become a member of parliament, you need 20 to 30 mics. For you to become women rep, you need maybe the amount. Governor, you need hundreds of millions, close to $1 billion. And let's not even talk about a presidential campaign. If politicians spend their money on you, they're definitely going to recover it from the public coffers. And so what we need to do is ensure that we vote in and elect the people who are based on their principles, the things that they stand for, as opposed to what they can give us in the short term. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of these billions that are spent in campaigns and whatnot could be used to further development. But because we prioritize instant gratification as a voter, we will need to retrain ourselves and recondition ourselves to move away from the space of instant gratification and sacrifice, have a short period of suffering for long-time gains or a pleasure in longevity, as opposed to the instant gratification that we get from the 200 shilling note. But also as young people, we have to find the alternative to the 200 shilling note. It is the biggest ideology I've seen, or the 1,000 shilling note. What do we have that is as revolutionary as bribing people? Until we crack that as the young people, we might still lag behind. But I'm very hopeful, seeing the trends of the conversations and the awakening that we've had. I think there will be a great change in our political landscape in the coming elections.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you. I want you to give your parting shots and maybe just 3 things, because now you've had a taste of both divides, being outside government and holding them accountable in ways that we knew best, and that was probably going to the streets, and now being part of the conversations that lead into legislation and just seeing the different side. What are the 3 things that young people, according to you, could now come out and do that will now bring change as we get towards the general elections and for a future that is inclusive for us, innovative enough for us, and that will actually bring us economical stability?
I would say that it is important for us to organize ourselves within political parties, to understand their role and understand our own roles within them. Let us join these mainstream political parties. If we do not want to form our own bloc, it has to be convincing and it has to encompass everybody. Let's not just think about it as a generational thing. We must learn how to build consensus as young people. 2, we must not be intimidated. We might feel young, we might feel out of place, we might feel like Johnny-come-latelys, but we have to, once we declare a stand, we have to see it to its fruitful and constructive end. And thirdly, we also need to learn the art of negotiation in the boardrooms, because politics, just as much as in life, is a game of concessions. It really is death by 1,000 cuts. It's just like love, just like marriage. There are certain concessions to be made. It's good to be hardliners, but as I have seen it, we will need to learn the art of dialogue and the art of negotiation. That's what I would tell if I were to think about it. But also, as a bonus, study, so that we're not caught flat-footed. A lot of the time, people hide things behind legal jargon and whatnot. So we have to study and understand the historical context and social, political, socio-cultural contexts, so that we are not caught off guard.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, Kasmuel.
Thank you for having me.
This is Speak Up Afrika. We continue to bring you such conversations that primarily aim to inform, engage, and empower you. And for the young people, for the longest, the song has been, the future belongs to us. But how about the future is here now and it belongs to us? So we continue vocalizing this and saying, please go out, take your voter's card. This is the place that will give us equal rights, equal priorities as we go to cast our votes. But just before we get there, there's a lot of studying, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of civic engagement that needs to be done. Do it for yourself, but also do it for your community. I hope this conversation has been engaging enough. My name is Wendy Lois. For now, I will love you and leave you. I'll be seeing you on our next episode. Kwaheri.